Okay, Emily, it looks good.
Okay. We'll call to order the February 24th, 2021 Nickel Plate Review Committee meeting. We will begin the meeting with the election of officers. We need to elect the president of the Nickel Plate Review Committee and the vice president of the Nickel Plate Review Committee tonight. So let's start with the president. Do we have any nominations?
I nominate Emily to be president.
Second. I do. Second. All right. I accept that nomination. Can we all take a vote, please? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right. Well, I will be your new president. Thank you. Do we have a nomination?
Congratulations.
Thank you. Do we have a nomination for vice president?
I nominate Eugene.
I'll second that. Eugene, do you accept the nomination?
I accept the nomination.
All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Congratulations, Eugene. You are the new vice president.
Thank you. Looking forward to working with you and the rest of the committee.
Yeah, thanks. We just do need to do a quick roll call. I guess we probably should have done that first, but present, Emily Bowman.
Eugene
Yes.
Johnson, present.
Mr. Johnson and Ms. Stoller.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
All present.
And then let's move on to our first case of the night. We have number NPR-21-1, the Maple Dell development. Ross
And
Hillary?
Emily, before Ross starts, Emily,
Yes.
we just need to do a quick approval of the minutes from that October meeting,
Yes.
which only you and Eugene were at.
I do approve the minutes. Eugene?
The motion to, is that a motion to approve those minutes?
Yes, I'm sorry. I motion to approve the minutes from 10/28/20.
Second.
And all those in favor, say aye.
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 I abstain.
Thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
Selena.
Sorry about that. Okay, so now we will do case number NPR-21-1, Maple Dell. Ross?
Yes, thank you. Can you see my screen okay? It should look like City Hall with NPR-21-1 on the screen. Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. For the record, Ross Hillary, City of Fishers, planner here with the City of Fishers. And tonight we're going to be reviewing Nickel Plate Review Committee -21-1, which is the Maple Dell multifamily development. I'll walk you through this project. Overview, HWC Engineering on behalf of JC Hart requests approval of the site design, architecture, a gateway feature, and various waivers for the Maple Dell multifamily development. It is approximately 9.34 acres. There will be approximately 191 units, including 3-story apartment buildings, duplexes, townhomes, and a pool house. And just for some reference on the project, HWC and JC Hart are currently working through their technical advisory committee process. The primary plat, secondary, and ILP were all submitted in January, so we are working our way through those. Just a little more context, the right-of-way vacation that's needed for this site is scheduled to go before City Council on the 15th of March. The annexation for this property is currently not within the City of Fishers, but will be able to record on March 19th. And both the plat and the vacation will go in front of plat committee on March 25th. So just a little bit of context on this project. Here is the location. It is located just south of Holland Drive in the intersection of East 116th Street. This is the current street grid that most of us are familiar with. It is zoned VC commercial. It is part of the Nickel Plate District, which is why it's here tonight. Excuse me, VC Village Center, not commercial. And here before you is the site plan. So you will see a realignment of the intersection to go to Holland Drive and 116th. There will be one intersection entrance there. A second entrance will be located on the east side of the property to an adjacent commercial building. But in the front along East 116th Street, we'll have 3-story apartment buildings. There's also other various 3-story apartment buildings. We also have duplexes, 3 and 4 unit townhomes, and a pool and pool house there in the middle. I'm not sure if you guys got these beforehand. I believe Kay did try to send them out. So we're looking at some building elevations here. It's a mixture of masonry and some pretty natural and neutral colors they've included here. Unfortunately, since we're not in person, you can't see and feel the textures. But again, this is a masonry product that varies throughout the project. We'll also have another elevation here. You'll see this second elevation shows where the garages will be underneath the 2nd and 3rd story apartments in the rear. I'll show that image again in a couple minutes. Again, this is part of the 3-story apartment buildings. Again, various colors, all really natural in tones, and as well as the masonry. We also have here, again, a similar product, but masonry and the colors similar to the other elevations we've shown. In here, I'll show you the 3-unit and 4-unit townhomes. Again, various masonry product and color, all a little different. And then finally, we have different color options for the duplexes. Here they say townhomes, but these are the 2-unit townhomes, duplexes that are along the western side of the property. These were provided in the staff report, but I'm kind of going to go through each one of the waivers that they're required or requesting tonight. We have a right-of-way requirement of 60-foot half, which we're proposing a 45-foot half. A sidewalk width waiver, planting strip waiver. There are front setback, minimum of 2 feet, maximum 10 feet. Doing a little bit of wavering there with 3 feet, minimum, a maximum of 19 feet. Side setback waiver as well. I'll highlight also the facades facing alley, private. We've been working through that as well. I'll show you that in an image later on. A masonry requirement, lowering that down to 50% for their products that are facing the public right-of-way, as well as structures that articulate horizontally and vertically a minimum of 2 feet for every 50 feet. They've kind of outlined their thought process in that. So anything that's public facing will have the articulation. Number 9, we have a couple of locations just on the duplexes where the driveways are a little closer than usual. A slight reduction in the parking count. The required number of parking spaces is 380, and they're proposing 371. So just a slight waiver there. The windows are required to be decorated headers of stone and masonry. They've asked for a waiver on that as part of their product. We'll show you that. In the nickel plate code, we do not currently allow surface parking in the village center, so they are asking for a waiver on that. Again, all that parking will be screened by either a building, the townhomes, or a fence. We're also asking for a waiver on a couple units, about 9% of the units to be less than 700 square feet, allowing different products throughout the development. Those will be within the apartment buildings. And then about 5% of the units that are offering balconies will have a Juliet balcony, and the nickel plate code requires a minimum depth of 3 feet. As I said earlier, we have a couple locations where the articulation is not up to the standard. So they've shown here that these are the locations that they're asking for the waiver. Again, these are on the back and rear of the 3-story apartment buildings. So either facing a parking lot or facing screening. Again, anything that's public facing will have the articulation that we require. Just so you are aware, here is an exhibit of the parking. We see lots of the parking is shown within the building, but about, I believe, 45% of it is surface parking, either on the private street or in a parking lot. And before you tonight, we're also asking you to approve a gateway feature. So this is a really unique opportunity along 116th to include a nickel plate district gateway into our downtown area. So this is located at the intersection of 116th and Holland Drive. As you are heading east, there'll be a little plaza there at the street intersection, but this really interesting monument that will kind of welcome guests and visitors into the nickel plate district. That was a lot. I'm happy to go back to any slide that any of you would like. The petitioner is here as well to answer questions. The staff does recommend approval as presented. They've worked really well with all of our staff, both engineering, fire, and planning throughout this process. Again, presented the site plan, architecture, the gateway feature, with the only condition that all the existing technical advisory committee items would be addressed and resolved. Other than that, again, the petitioner is here and staff is happy to answer any questions.
Petitioner, would you like to make any comments before we start discussing?
Yeah, this is Todd May with J.C. Hart. Ross, excellent job presenting our project as always. We have our team here. Randy Sherman with Weaver Sherman is our land planner and architect. Chad James with Hannum Wagon Klein is on, and I believe I saw Tom Dickey get on with Hageman, our partner. So you should be able to answer all your questions. There was one thing, Ross, I noticed on the presentation, the rear of the paired patio homes. We did add masonry to the gabled feature. So I think that would be important to show the committee tonight. I think, Randy, you might have that to bring up. But I just wanted to point that out. And then if there were any questions you had about the materials or the architecture, Randy is able to walk you through that. And then any technical design questions, Chad's here as well. And then I can fill in what I'm able to. So appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you.
Right there.
This is Randy Sherman with Weaver Sherman. If you would like me to share screen to show those masonry elements on the rear facade here, I could do that.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
Yeah, that came as the result. We've met with Charleston Crossing neighborhood, I think 3 different times now. We met with Fisher's Point, I think on 2 separate times, and had a lot of communication back and forth in between there. And I think one of the things with Charleston Crossing we wanted to make sure was that on the landscaping, we strengthened the buffer yard with a tremendous amount of plantings and filling in the holes where there might not, there's a lot of existing trees there. So we added some there. And then in that process, we added some masonry, just trying to dress up the rear since, we said we wanted to be good neighbors. So that's where that came from. It wasn't really a specific request, but it was something we thought would make the back of those buildings look nicer.
And I think the other thing I can add, Todd, is we now have a sample of the cast stone, which would be one of the 4 material palettes for the masonry on these larger buildings that face 116th Street. And the goal of this material type is to look like an oversized limestone finished rectilinear pieces, so that this has more of an urban character to the material type along 116th Street, in addition to the 3 other masonry types that we've presented. So that's just another piece of information. And then, as Todd mentioned, the rear of the townhomes, we've introduced stone and brick to match the material palette of the front of each of the attached doubles here along our eastern or western boundary of our project. And we have 2 different color palettes for these buildings. So we'll change the color palette to match the secondary color palette when we kind of go down the streetscape, which will add variety to the rear of our site as it abuts Charleston Crossing.
Selena and Eugene, do you have comments?
I've got a couple of quick questions. I was taking a look at the layout, and I noticed the location of the bike racks, and it looks like there's one located by the eastern entrance exit, one located by the pool house, and then there's one located in the southwest corner of the development. So I just kind of noticed there wasn't really much of a bike rack or anything listed for that northwestern corner. I just didn't know, in terms of just trying to scale, how far the residents in that particular area would have to travel if they're bike riders or anything. How far that would be from the pool house, or what the closest bike rack would be. I think it's number 21 on there, I believe, is the number.
Yeah, so I can speak to that. So really, we were just kind of trying to spread it out as much as possible with the required 13 number of bike racks per the code. Our thought process was, people biking to the amenities, the gazebo on the southwest, the gazebo and raised gardens near the southeast, the pool amenity, and then you've got another one near the clubhouse. So that was kind of the thought process going into that. I'm not sure on the northwest corner how much or how many users would end up using that from their aspect.
Okay.
So does each unit have its own individual parking spot?
When you say each individual unit, are you talking, each building provides its somewhat of its own parking.
Right. Each apartment, will there be an assigned parking with each apartment, or is it just, it looks like there's some garage space. Does that cover each unit?
Go ahead, Randy.
Yeah, Randy.
Yeah, so this image here, the building in the top left, the northwest corner there, is an example. We have 10 private garage spaces, which are individual garage spaces that a resident would pay for, and they would have a garage door opener much like you would have in a single family home, and that would exit into a public corridor so that they could access their unit. In addition, we have the public garage on the far left of that building that would have an additional 12 parking spaces in it. So we're not quite parking that building at a one-to-one with parking garages. So the balance of the users of that building would park in the surface parking lot just south of it there, within that circle that has just been outlined in that space. So I will say the other thing that can happen here is when you have a private garage, you could store your bike in the building. And a lot of the users of these apartments would do that.
Okay, overall, what is your percentage of apartments that have garages as opposed to those that would need to use, even if the garage is not attached, what percentage of your parking is garage parking and what percentage is non-garage parking? The surface parking.
I think that percentage is almost 68%.
Okay, so 68% can park in a garage if they want to?
They would have a garage space.
Okay.
We're typically around 50 to 55%, which is pretty high.
Yeah.
But because of the garage that Randy just outlined, the common that has 12 spaces, that's pretty unique to the marketplace, and that's what really has helped us increase that count and provide much more parking. And that was all really thought about a long time ago, actually, to should really be attractive to the empty nester that wanted to live closer to downtown, that was very used to having a garage in their home, their single family home.
And then, so the apartments, those will be rentals. The duplexes, will they be rentals as well? Or will they be for sale property?
Yeah, it's all of the product types, the unit types are all market rent.
Okay, okay. And then on the siding, on the elevations, is that going to be like a hardy pink siding or?
Correct. It's a cementitious, like a hardy siding that you're referring to. Yes.
Okay.
I had a question going back to the parking. I was curious how much in terms of the surface parking will be determined was for residents versus visitors. I just didn't know, looking at since the development is going to be next to really, it's going to be north of a residential neighborhood and then west of a commercial development, just how parking would be for anybody who has visitors. I know that sometimes can be a conundrum with apartments where visitors take up space that's intended for residents, and you run into those issues. Is there anything just dedicated for visitor parking, or is that to be determined?
I can answer that. So the site plan is designed so that there's a series of blocks, and there's kind of front streets to the blocks, and then what we would refer to as kind of like an alley or courtyard parking lot in the back. And for convenience reasons, the users that live here will likely park in the rear of these buildings because it's just more convenient parking for access to their units. And what we find is that allows the street parking that's indicated as parallel parking on the fronts, works great for guests, and they can be able to get access to the people they're visiting through front doors along the front sidewalks near that parallel parking. So it kind of provides a nice, attractive front entry approach for guests to visit people on site here.
That's good. Yeah, I hope, and I guess the other related to that with the guests, that it's intended for guests of the guests of the apartments. I know there's one or two bars. Well, there's Chatham Tap right there, and so hopefully that everybody's on top of any overspill would not go into the apartment complex, and that the retail space to the east, to the east has enough space for parking. So I was just curious about that, but thank you for that feedback. I have one last question, but I think that's everything I have. When it comes to any exterior lighting that would impact the residents of the Charleston Crossing, have you all had discussions with those residents concerning any concerns they might have with outdoor lighting will be on the exterior of the buildings and the impact to the neighborhoods?
Yeah, I guess I could address that one also. The doubles are going to have recessed covered rear porches. And so the lighting that we would use in those outdoor spaces would actually be ceiling mounted pointing downward. So that way we aren't casting light towards the neighbors to the east and south. Same thing for the townhomes. We're just going to have some coach mounted lights to the buildings near their front entry doors. And most of those units are turned 90 degrees to the property line so that the ends of the buildings are what are being presented to the neighbors to the south. So there should be very minimal building lighting facing the residents to the south.
Awesome, thank you.
Sure.
Emily, I have a lot of questions. Can I start going down through them?
It's all you. Take the floor, lady.
All right. Let's see. I'm going to go down through. Can we bring up the list of waivers that's being requested? And I'd like to, I know my notes are going down through that. Can that be displayed? I don't know if anybody.
Yes, I'll do. Just a second.
Okay. Okay. The right of way. What is the precedence that's been set on other projects along 116th Street?
Sure, I can answer that. This section here, I'll go back to the site plan so you can see that as well. the right-of-way that's required has already been obtained. Our standard is 60 feet, but the engineering department doesn't need more than what they already have. So with this project here, what they had to go with and what they were working with was already meeting the engineering requirements. So that requirement of 60 foot was not required.
Okay, so my concern is this is at that stoplight. I think it's at 116th and Holland. So is there ever a situation where we would need to widen 116th Street to put like a mini left turn lane in there that we would need that right of way for?
Engineering has not brought up any concerns. There will be a dedicated turn lane heading west. So that median that exists right now will have a dedicated turn lane there. But heading east, there's already 2 lanes as well as a turn lane. So engineering had no concerns about the intersection or requiring additional right-of-way for a right dedicated lane.
And Selena, this is Tony. I will note that the 45-foot right-of-way is what's required under the transportation plan. For some reason, the zoning ordinance of the nickel plate has a 60-foot right-of-way, but 116th doesn't have that in that area at all. So it's inconsistent with the actual transportation plan. So it's something that we would want to change in the nickel plate code because it doesn't meet anything that we have.
Okay. So number 2, the sidewalk width. That I'm okay with. I see 15-foot downtown, down Liberty Plaza, but I don't think we need that in this area. So that one I'm okay with. The planning strip I'm okay with. The setbacks are there any more neighborhood meetings? You say that the neighborhoods are okay with this. Are they okay with the buffering? Because I did have a little bit of concern on the west side with the privacy for the neighbors and the buffering there. Is that going to be an issue?
Yeah, so we've provided the landscape buffer that's required, and we've actually gone above and beyond that type 2 buffer, in which we requested a waiver in order to get some changes to the planting material so we could fit more plantings in that area. So we've gone through this with Charleston Crossing and shown them our landscape buffer on the west and the south, and they were okay with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chad, I'll add just a comment to that. Selena, this is Tom Dickey. One thing from the beginning that Charleston Crossing was very happy with was J.C. Hart's plan to put the duplexes on the west property line, so that literally, and even more so than that, the duplexes are 2-story on the front and really 1-story on the back. And so the scale, really from Charleston Crossing, you're going to look into this neighborhood and immediately see homes that look almost identical with the homes in Charleston Crossing. So, and I would characterize, and Todd or Chad and Randy were all on the same call that we had with Charleston Crossing last week. There were a number of thank yous, good job, thanks for listening to us. Traffic is their number one lingering concern. But I think as far as buffers, I would agree with Chad that I think they've seen it and are satisfied.
Okay, I'm just wanting to make sure. Okay, yep. Another question. When we look at the buildings and we look at them along 116th Street, the westmost building is jogged. It's not symmetrical and it's not parallel to 116th Street. Why is that?
Randy, you want to cover that?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, great question.
Yeah. So there's a few reasons we chose to do that. I know the mayor was concerned with the amount of setback that we present along 116th Street, mainly in reaction to the townhome product that has just gone in near this project site on the north side of 116th Street and slightly to the east. So one of the variances we are asking for was actually an increase in the building setback along 116th Street from the requirement within the nickel plate code, which the goal of it was to bring the buildings up close to the street to give an urban feel. And since this is the very westernmost edge of that district, and we're really getting into the residential single-family areas of Fishers along 116th Street, we wanted to make sure that we could start to transition and push the buildings back into our site away from 116th Street more. And so the westernmost building is really kind of addressing that concern and also trying to present a little bit more of a view of the front of that building to 116th Street when you're heading from the west side of 116th Street and Fishers towards downtown. And there's also a detention pond for Charleston Crossing right next to this.
Yeah.
There we go. So we really have a open view into the site here, and we thought turning the building would help us better screen the parking lot that's behind it as well from the public view as they come into downtown from the west on 116th Street. So it was all about what image are we presenting to the community as we head into downtown and making sure we screen that parking and give almost more of a deflected view of the front of the building coming into downtown.
Okay. Another question is, I'm looking at the connectivity. We have, go back to the one where it shows, yeah, this one works. Okay, so there's the house there that's kind of the cutout that's near 116th Street on the east side, right behind Chatham Tap. What, I want to ask staff, what is the plans? At some point in time, that property is probably going to be sold. What kind of connectivity do we need to put into this project to connect to that project as we move forward?
Counselor, are you referring to this parcel right here?
Yes.
So this will be a phase 2 of their product, similar in nature to the building that you see here. It's again not part of tonight's project, but they will do a similar product to the building that is located here. So they intend to make that a phase 2.
Okay, so when that is developed, how will there be connectivity over to Chatham Tap? I mean, I'm looking for walkers, bikers, things like this, people that's going down 116th Street.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I was going to say the only opportunity for connection is the trail, / sidewalk on 116th Street. Perhaps, I mean, it's because it's otherwise it's private property to private property, and whether Chatham Tap, the owner of that building, would want sort of pedestrian connectivity kind of coming in from the backside. Actually, we even talked about this, Todd. Now that I'm thinking about this, you would come in right at the dumpsters in that back parking lot. Sort of came in on the backside. So certainly the idea is it's 116th Street is the public connection. And then just as another aside, it's not a direct response to what you just asked, Counselor, but the Townhome Association very specifically did not want any pedestrian, connectivity between the two. So that's why basically from the very edge of where we abut the townhome project to the east all the way to the south, that's a 6-foot, fence with no possibility of connection. And so I think that the answer to your question realistically is 116th Street right away.
Okay, and I'm okay with that. Like I said, I just want to make sure that, I'm hoping that someday somebody can get from 116th and Allisonville all the way to downtown.
Right. Yep, for sure.
It is kind of the goal. So I want to make sure that we plan for that as we move forward. Can we go back to the waivers list and move down? I think most of these, I think I have, okay, we went over the parking ratios as I look down these. Could you remind me what a Juliet balcony is? Is that one that's more for aesthetics, like what we see on the Switch or something?
Yeah, so typically a balcony that we would require with that 3-foot depth is one where you could physically walk out or beyond that deck. A Juliet balcony is more, like you said, aesthetic, where they would have a door that could open to allow breeze in, but you would not be able to really physically be on that deck. Again, with here, this product, I think the units that have balconies, 5% of them, 10 out of the 191 units would have a balcony that's more aesthetic than a regular one that you could walk out on. To your point, there are others within the downtown area that are like that.
Okay. Okay, I think those are all the questions that I had, and I'm okay with the explanation to these questions and waivers. So, Emily, I'll pass it back to you. I don't know if anybody else has questions or not.
I think I only had one other question. And it's really just more of a please jog my memory. But is there a light at Holland and 116th? There is, correct?
Yes, it is an intersection that's lit.
Okay. Okay. I just wanted, I think with the amount of units here, that's going to be really important to have. So I just wanted to double check on that.
Emily, I'll make one more note that I don't know if everyone was able to hear me before. This development will be adding a turn lane here that's currently part of the median. So when you're heading westbound on 116th Street, we'll have a dedicated left turn lane into the development at that lit intersection.
That was actually going to be one of my questions. And when you went over it, I was like, oh, I don't have to talk about that now. All right.
Yeah, we
So I think
worked with A&F Engineering hand in hand, along with Chad's group, to make sure, because as it was, I think Tom mentioned earlier, to Charleston Crossing, they have a difficult time turning west out of their neighborhood. And so having our property here, we will cycle the lights, because now there'll be, it's a 3-way light right now. It'll be a 4-way. So traffic traveling west will have to stop a little bit longer to allow our traffic to go through. That will give them a longer window of time to make that turn out. So this was a very important aspect of the design of this, is getting the entrance right and the lights right.
Oh, and other question I had, the marker, the nickel plate marker, where is that located on this plan, on the plan? I'm not seeing it.
So it'll be located right here at the southwest corner of that intersection. So next to this building number 2 will be a small little plaza right here, and that marker would be in front of that 3-story building.
Okay.
So this is the entrance into the development from 116.
Okay. And it'll be on that corner there. Okay. Yeah. Well, I think I'm happy with the explanations. Anybody have any further discussion before we take a vote?
Move to approve.
Second.
Can we add to that motion, obviously contingent upon successful TAC meeting? I think we need to, with the condition that it gets through TAC.
Yeah,
Is that
I amend my motion to approve with the condition that it goes through TAC successfully.
Okay. You second that, Selena?
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed? Motion approved for NPR-21-1 Maple Dell. I believe that is everything on the agenda for this evening. Anybody have anything additional we need to discuss? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you,
I'll
everybody.
second. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Everybody have a good evening.
Mhm.
You're not gonna hurt anything. That's all right, I'll just, nickel plate review and then Board of Zoning Appeals is next. See, they must have just put that on there because. Yeah, this is just my calendar here, this blue one. See, they didn't put that on my. Stop it at one other.